Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 1.
It was Halloween night, and the air in my small town had a strange heaviness, like the fog itself was watching. I was out with a group of friends, wandering the quiet streets, just enjoying the usual scares and pranks. Nothing felt out of place at first. Pumpkins flickering on porches, kids running around in costumes, laughter echoing through the darkness. But then we reached the edge of town, where the old Miller house had been abandoned for years. Everyone knew it was creepy, but no one dared go close. Curiosity got the better of us. The door was already slightly ajar, hanging on rusted hinges, and a faint, musty smell drifted out. We joked about ghosts and curses as we stepped inside, but the air felt thick, suffocating, and almost alive. The living room was covered in dust. Furniture toppled as if something had ransacked it in a hurry. But then we noticed something we hadn't expected. A single chair in the middle of the floor, facing the corner, like someone had been sitting there and waiting. I laughed nervously and told all of my friends it was just some old decoration, but the sound of a soft scratching from the corner made my stomach twist. My friend Mark, trying to be brave, moved closer, shining his flashlight. What we saw made all of us freeze. Deep, claw-like marks on the wall, running from floor to ceiling, and streaks of what looked like dried blood. None of us spoke. The scratching continued, slow, deliberate, circling the room. Then the chair rocked slowly by itself, like an invisible weight was sitting down. A whisper came from the corner, almost too faint to hear, but unmistakable. "Why are you here?" We bolted for the door, but it slammed shut before any of us could reach it. The lights of our flashlights flickered, then went out completely. In the pitch black, we could hear footsteps moving closer, slow, dragging, but no one was there. I screamed for my friends, but their voices were distant, warped like they were somewhere else. Panic took over. My hands fumbled with the doorknob until finally it clicked. We ran into the night, not stopping until we reached the safety of the main road. When we looked back, the house was silent, the fog curling around it like a living thing. We thought we had escaped, but when we got home, I noticed a small, thin scratch on my arm, shaped like a finger dragging down. None of my friends had one, and we all agreed we had been careful not to touch anything. I still wake up some nights, hearing the slow rocking of a chair and a whisper in my ear asking, "Why are you here?" And every year, as Halloween approaches, I feel the same oppressive weight in the air, like the house is calling me back. The thing is, the Miller house was torn down months later, but the footprints outside the corner window, where we hadn't even entered, were never explained. And the scratching never stopped.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 2.
On Halloween night in a quiet suburban neighborhood, a group of friends decided to take their usual route through the woods, a shortcut they had walked every year since childhood. This year, the air was heavier, thick with an unseasonable fog that seemed to swallow the streetlights and mute the distant laughter of other trick-or-treaters. As they stepped onto the forest path, the usual rustling of leaves seemed exaggerated, each snap of a twig underfoot echoing unnaturally. They joked about old urban legends, the haunted house deeper in the woods, the story of a man who vanished here decades ago, but the laughter felt hollow, echoing against the trees as if the forest itself were listening. Halfway down the path, one of them, Jason, spotted something in the shadows. A figure, hunched, wearing a ragged mask, its movements jerky and unnatural. When he pointed it out, the figure vanished as if it had never been there. Shaken but trying to dismiss it, the group pressed on, only to find themselves lost. The path they had always known twisted in ways that didn't make sense, and their phones showed no signal. Then came the whispers. Faint at first, like wind through the branches, then clearer, soft voices calling their names. At first they laughed nervously, convincing themselves it was each other, but soon it became apparent they were alone. Panic set in. They ran, tripping over roots, screaming into the fog, only to circle back to the same twisted, narrow clearing. That's when they saw it. A small, decayed figure crouched against a tree, staring at them with hollow eyes. It didn't move like a person. It twitched in small, jerky motions, and every time they blinked, it seemed closer. One of them, Sarah, tried to call out, but her voice caught in her throat. The figure mimicked her, whispering her name, perfectly in her voice. They ran blindly until they stumbled into what looked like an abandoned house in the middle of the forest, a place none of them had ever seen before. The door creaked open on its own. Inside, the smell of decay was overpowering. Furniture was overturned, walls smeared with unidentifiable dark stains, and on the floor lay hundreds of small broken masks, all human-sized. And then the sound of footsteps, not theirs, echoed above them, slow and deliberate, moving closer. They found a back staircase leading to the basement. The last thing they remember is descending, the faint light of a single bulb swinging, and the laughter, children's laughter, but distorted, wrong. Then silence. The neighbors found the house days later. It had been empty for decades. Authorities reported no footprints, no signs of recent life, just the masks stacked neatly in the corner. Every Halloween since, locals warned children to avoid the woods near that house, claiming you can still hear whispers in the fog, calling your name, inviting you to follow the path that never ends. No one knows what became of Jason, Sarah, and the others, but every year, someone reports seeing figures lurking in the fog near the forest, wearing masks eerily similar to those in the abandoned house, their eyes hollow, waiting for the next group of friends to walk too close.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 3.
On Halloween night in a quiet suburban town, the streets were almost empty, except for the occasional group of kids in costumes, their laughter echoing between houses. Everyone seemed to keep their doors locked, lights dimmed, and candy bowls untouched. The air felt heavy, like something was waiting just out of sight. A teenager named Emily decided to walk alone that night. She had always loved the thrill of Halloween, the way shadows stretched unnaturally, the way the wind whispered through the trees. But that night, the air felt wrong. She tried to shake off the feeling as she walked past the old Thompson house, a place everyone in town avoided. The windows were boarded up, paint peeling, and rumors of its former owner's mysterious disappearance hung like a cloud over it. Emily saw movement inside one of the broken windows. At first, she thought it was a trick of the flickering streetlight, but then a figure emerged, pale and slumped, staring straight at her. Her heart pounded. She told herself it had to be someone's Halloween prank. She stepped closer, curiosity overtaking fear, and noticed the figure wasn't moving like a person. It was jerking, twitching unnaturally, like a puppet. She tried to call out, but her voice caught in her throat. Suddenly, the front door creaked open, revealing a hallway lined with dark stains she couldn't identify from the street. The figure began moving toward her, slowly, but each step was deliberate enough to make her blood run cold. Emily turned to run, but the street behind her was empty, eerily silent. She sprinted down the sidewalk, heart hammering, only to find herself back in front of the same house, the front door wide open. She realized she had been running in circles, the streets twisting in ways that made no sense. Panic consumed her as she heard whispers behind her, soft at first, then growing louder, repeating her name. She didn't stop. She darted into an alley, thinking she could lose whatever was following her, only to find it ended at a high brick wall. When she turned, the figure was there, closer now, its face grotesque, eyes hollow and black, mouth opening unnaturally wide as if it was trying to scream or swallow her whole. Emily ran again, leaping over fences and darting through backyards, but the figure never lost ground. Her lungs burned, her legs ached, but the whispers had become a chorus, 1,000 voices repeating every secret she had ever tried to hide. She realized she had never been seen by anyone all night. No one had looked out their windows. No one had walked the streets. It was as if the town itself had disappeared. Finally, she stumbled into a small, abandoned church at the edge of town. The door slammed behind her, and silence fell, thick and suffocating. She pressed her back against the cold wooden door, chest heaving, only to feel something cold brush against her shoulder. She spun around. The figure was inside, yet impossibly, the doorway had been empty when she ran in. Its hollow eyes met hers, and a voice, her own voice, whispered, "You can't leave." The next morning, neighbors found the Thompson house untouched, no sign of Emily. Her Halloween costume was lying on the sidewalk, ripped and dirty, but she was gone. Some claim they can still hear her whispers on Halloween night, calling their names, asking them to come inside. No one who goes near that house alone ever returns. The town learned to lock their doors tighter each Halloween to ignore the empty streets. But every year, someone disappears, and every year the whispers return, just loud enough for you to hear.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 4.
On Halloween night, in a small town in Pennsylvania, a group of teenagers decided to explore an abandoned house on the edge of the woods. The locals called it the Miller House, long since empty but infamous for the rumors of the family who disappeared there decades ago. Most people avoided it, claiming that lights would flicker inside even when the house was empty. And some said they could hear whispers from the windows when the wind blew a certain way. The group laughed nervously as they crept up to the house, flashlights cutting through the thick autumn fog. The front door was hanging off its hinges, and a faint smell of decay floated out. One of them, Jason, joked about making a TikTok, but the others noticed his hands trembling. Inside, the walls were covered in peeling wallpaper, and the air was icy despite the mild fall evening. As they explored, they found the remnants of the Miller family's life. Old photographs, toys covered in dust, a rocking chair that creaked as if someone had just left it. Then they heard it, a soft scratching from upstairs. They froze. Probably a raccoon, someone whispered. But the sound moved closer, step by step, slowly down the staircase. Suddenly, the lights from their phones flickered and died. Total darkness swallowed them. Panic set in as they tried to backtrack to the door, but it slammed shut on its own. Jason screamed when something cold brushed against his arm. The others grabbed him, trying to pull him toward the exit, but the house seemed to stretch and twist around them. The walls groaned like they were alive. One of the teens, Emma, thought she saw a figure at the end of the hallway, pale and featureless, but every time she blinked, it was gone. Her breathing became rapid as the sound of whispers filled the air, growing louder, circling them, chanting words she didn't understand. Then she realized the whispers were coming from the photographs on the wall, every face in every picture slowly twisting into silent screams. In a blind panic, they all ran toward what they thought was the front door. When they burst out into the yard, gasping for air, the house behind them looked ordinary again, quiet and abandoned. They were trembling, each certain they'd escaped, but as they turned to leave, Jason noticed something carved into the side of the house in fresh scratches. "Stay with us." When the police arrived the next day, the house was empty and silent, with no signs of a break-in. No one ever saw Jason, Emma, or the others again. Neighbors claimed that on Halloween nights, faint screams can still be heard from inside the Miller house, and sometimes, if you get close enough, the windows flicker with shadows that aren't yours. Even now, people who've tried to investigate say the house waits for Halloween, waiting for anyone curious enough to step inside. And once you do, it never lets you leave.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 5.
On a quiet Halloween night in a small New England town, a group of college friends decided to explore an abandoned house at the edge of the woods. The house had been empty for decades, and locals whispered that anyone who entered never came out the same. The friends, fueled by alcohol and bravado, laughed off the warnings. As they crossed the threshold, the air inside felt colder than the night outside. The walls were lined with peeling wallpaper, and the floorboards groaned under every step. In the living room, they found a circle of old, rusted dolls with their eyes scratched out. One of the friends, Mark, jokingly picked up a doll, and the others laughed, unaware of the faint whispering that seemed to echo through the house. They moved from room to room, their flashlights barely cutting through the darkness. In the attic, they discovered a locked trunk. Curiosity got the better of them, and they pried it open, revealing yellowed photographs of children. Their eyes were scratched out, just like the dolls, and each photo had a date next to it, every Halloween spanning over 50 years. The last photo was dated for that very night. Suddenly, the temperature dropped further, and the friends noticed faint footsteps coming from below. They assumed it was an animal, but when they turned on their flashlights, the stairs were empty. Panic began to set in as the whispers grew louder, circling them from every corner of the attic. One friend, Sarah, swore she saw a shadow move across the wall, holding something that resembled the dolls from the living room. They decided to leave, but the front door wouldn't budge. Windows rattled as if someone or something was trying to get in from outside. One by one, they felt cold hands brush their skin, leaving deep scratches. Mark screamed as he saw a figure standing at the bottom of the stairs, its face pale and eyes hollow, mimicking the expressions from the photographs. The friends tried to escape through the back, but the woods seemed to stretch endlessly, and every path they took led them back to the house. It was as if the building itself had trapped them in some warped loop. Hours passed, or maybe minutes, they couldn't tell, and one by one the whispers formed words, "Stay, forever." By sunrise, the house was empty. The townspeople found the abandoned car of the group at the edge of the woods, doors unlocked, flashlights still on, but there was no sign of the friends. Weeks later, a new photograph appeared in the trunk of the house, showing 5 terrified faces with their eyes scratched out. The date, faintly scrawled below, read the night of their disappearance, Halloween. No one has dared enter that house since. On quiet Halloweens, locals swear they can hear whispers drifting from the woods, repeating the same chilling words over and over. Stay forever.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 6.
It started in a quiet suburban neighborhood where Halloween had always been safe. Kids trick-or-treating, neighbors handing out candy, the usual laughter echoing down the streets. That year, a group of teenagers decided to explore the old Thornfield house at the edge of town. It had been abandoned for decades, the windows boarded up, the yard overgrown. Rumors had swirled for years about why the last owners disappeared. Some said they left town. Others whispered darker possibilities, but no one dared go near after dusk. The teenagers arrived just as the sun dipped below the horizon. They laughed nervously, cameras in hand, recording for what they promised themselves would be a fun, spooky video. As they crept through the rusted gate, the air grew unnaturally cold. Leaves rustled with no wind, and the only sound was the faint squeak of the old boards beneath their feet. Inside, the house was worse than they imagined. Wallpaper peeled in long, curling strips, and the smell of mildew and something worse hung thick in the air. On the living room floor, they found something that made their stomachs twist. A small collection of children's toys, arranged in a circle with what looked like handprints pressed into the dust around them. They joked nervously, trying to laugh it off. Then they heard it, a soft thump from upstairs like footsteps. At first, they told themselves it was just the house settling, but the thumps grew louder, deliberate, following them as they moved through the rooms. One of the teenagers, trying to prove bravery, climbed the stairs, only to find the hallway empty, but at the far end, a door slowly creaked open on its own. They froze. From inside the room came the faintest whisper, "Stay with us." The sound was barely audible, yet it wrapped around their minds like a freezing hand. Panic set in. They turned to leave, only to find the front door wouldn't budge, as if the house itself had grown tight around them. Windows were opaque with grime, reflecting only shadows, and the footsteps were all around them now, faster, sharper, circling. One of the teens snapped a picture, hoping to capture evidence, but the photo revealed something impossible. Each of their faces was pressed against a wall, eyes wide with terror, but behind them, shadowy figures leaned in, grinning silently. They didn't see these figures in the room, only in the photo. The group finally broke a window and scrambled outside, gasping for air. Their relief was short-lived. In the street, all the houses were dark, silent, not a single trick-or-treater, not a single light. Then they noticed something more terrifying. The Thornfield house was gone. In its place was an empty lot, overgrown with weeds, the kind of lot that had never housed a house. It was only later that they discovered the truth. Police records confirmed that the Thornfield house had burned down nearly 50 years ago. The last known occupants were a family that had vanished one Halloween night. No one had ever entered the charred ruins. Yet somehow that night, the teenagers had stepped inside a house that didn't exist and came face to face with whatever still lingered there. The photos remained on their phones, but whenever they tried to show them to anyone else, the images were blank. No figures, no faces, just empty rooms and walls. Only the teenagers remembered what they had seen, and the memory haunted them every Halloween afterward. Even now, when someone mentions the Thornfield house, Their hands shake, and the shadows around them seem to whisper, "Stay with us." That year, Halloween didn't end with candy or laughter. For those teens, it ended with the kind of fear that never lets go.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 7.
It was Halloween night, and the streets were filled with the usual laughter, costumes, and flickering jack-o'-lanterns. But in a quiet suburban neighborhood on the outskirts of town, something felt off. The air was unusually heavy, and the wind carried a faint metallic scent. A group of teenagers, eager for a thrill, decided to explore an old abandoned house at the end of the street. The locals whispered about it every Halloween: strange disappearances, unexplained noises, and shadowy figures seen moving behind broken windows. The house had been empty for decades, but something about it called to them, daring them to step inside. As soon as they crossed the threshold, the temperature dropped. Their flashlights flickered, casting long, shifting shadows across peeling wallpaper and cracked floors. At first, it seemed like the usual abandoned house creepiness: cobwebs, broken furniture, and the smell of decay. But then they heard it, a faint whisper, like someone calling their names, coming from the basement. Against their better judgment, they descended. The stairs creaked with every step, and the darkness seemed to swallow the weak beam of light. At the bottom, the air was thick, almost suffocating. One of them noticed a trail of dark, sticky footprints leading to a small room. Inside, there were dozens of old carved pumpkins, each one eerily realistic, their carved mouths twisted in silent screams. But the worst part was the eyes. Small, black, glassy eyes that seemed to follow them. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them. The whispering grew louder, now forming words they could understand. "You shouldn't be here. We never left." Panic set in as the teenagers tried to open the door, but it was stuck, as if the house itself had a grip on them. The temperature plummeted further, their breath forming icy clouds in front of their faces. Then they saw them, figures emerging from the shadows, tall, thin, impossibly fast. Their skin was pale, almost translucent, and their eyes were hollow voids. They moved silently, but with a terrible purpose, circling the teenagers. One by one, the figures reached out, touching the teens. Those who were touched screamed, but the sound was muffled, as if the darkness itself absorbed it. Hours, or maybe minutes, passed, and when the sun finally rose, the neighbors found the house empty. The front door was wide open, the windows clear, as if nothing had happened. The teenagers were gone. Their costumes, their candy bags, and their shoes were still there, scattered across the floor. Nothing else remained. Every Halloween after that, the neighborhood kids reported hearing whispers from the abandoned house, and some claimed to see faint, pale figures moving behind the shattered windows. People who dared go near the house never stayed for long. Some say the teenagers are still inside, trapped between the walls and shadows, forever part of the house's collection of horrors. Others say the house chooses new victims every year, drawn to the bravest or the most foolish who dare walk through its doors on Halloween night. No one knows for sure, but every year when the wind carries that metallic scent through the neighborhood, people lock their doors and pray that the house doesn't call their names next.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 8.
It was Halloween night in a small town where everyone knew everyone, and the streets were lined with carved pumpkins, their flickering lights casting long, jittering shadows. A group of teenagers decided to explore the old Holloway house at the edge of town. The house had been abandoned for years, and rumors about it were whispered every October. Strange noises, doors that slammed by themselves, and a lingering smell of rot that some claimed would follow you home. No one really believed it until that night. As they stepped inside, the air felt thick and heavy, almost like it was resisting their presence. The floorboards groaned under their weight, and the faint smell of something metallic filled their noses. One of the teens, Jenna, noticed a series of old photographs hanging crookedly on the wall. They were black and white pictures of children, but their eyes seemed scratched out, and a thin red streak ran across each face, as if someone had tried to erase them. A sudden crash upstairs made them all jump. Heart pounding, they climbed the staircase, which was missing steps in places. When they reached the landing, they saw a door slightly ajar. Through the crack, they could see a small room filled with dusty toys, But one of the toys, a porcelain doll, was sitting upright, staring directly at them. Its glassy eyes seemed too real, too aware. Then the temperature dropped. Their breath fogged in front of them, and they heard a whisper so soft they thought they imagined it. "Get out!" Panic set in. They turned to leave, but the door slammed shut behind them. The lock clicked and it wouldn't budge. Scratching and pounding at the door, they could hear something moving in the room, slow and deliberate. The doll, they realized, had moved. It was now closer to the doorway, its head tilted unnaturally. Suddenly, the lights of their flashlights flickered and went out. In the pitch-black room, they felt something brush past them, cold and wet, like fingers against skin. A low, guttural sound filled the air, growing louder, coming from every direction at once. One by one, they screamed as the room seemed to close in on them. When they finally managed to pry the door open, gasping for air, the street outside was empty and quiet, as if no one had been there. Trembling, they swore never to speak of it. But that night, and every Halloween after, Jenna would hear whispers whenever she passed the Holloway house. Sometimes she would see the faint outline of a doll in the window, staring at her with scratched-out eyes. Years later, the house was torn down. But the teens never forgot the night they were trapped inside. And every year, on Halloween, each of them still felt that cold brush of fingers against their skin and heard that faint whisper calling them back. "Get out!"
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 9.
It was Halloween night in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind where every house had carefully carved pumpkins and fake cobwebs. People said it was the safest part of town, and for teenagers looking for a thrill, it was the perfect target. A group of 4 friends, all seniors in high school, decided to pull off a prank. They wanted to scare someone, just one house, but not too badly. They picked a house at the end of the street owned by an elderly couple who were always polite but kept to themselves. The plan was simple. Wait until dark, hide near the yard, and make noises to freak them out. Nothing dangerous. Just a laugh, a story to tell later. By 9 p.m., they were crouched behind a row of hedges, laughing quietly, each one clutching a flashlight. They began tapping on windows and rustling leaves, keeping just out of sight. At first, there was no reaction, just the faint sound of someone shuffling inside. Then the front door opened slowly. The old man stepped outside, and the friends froze. He didn't shout or yell. He just looked straight at them, as if he had known they were there the entire time. Then he spoke. "I know who you are," he said quietly, his voice calm, almost too calm. "And I know what you're thinking." Panic set in. They were just kids trying to scare someone, and now he sounded like he knew every detail. One of the girls whispered, "Let's go," but as they turned to run, he started walking toward them. Not fast, not threatening, but steadily, with this unnerving purpose. The friends bolted, sprinting through yards and up streets they didn't normally take. But no matter which way they ran, it seemed like he was always ahead of them, waiting around corners, emerging from shadows. Their phones were dead, which was impossible. They were fully charged that afternoon. Every flashlight flickered and died. They felt trapped in a nightmare version of their familiar neighborhood. Finally, they burst onto the main street, panting and terrified, expecting to see someone or something chasing them. But no one was there. Just the quiet street, pumpkin lights swaying in the wind. They never saw the old man again. Weeks later, one of the friends found a small envelope slipped under their door. Inside was a single Polaroid photo, the 4 of them, taken from somewhere very close, very dark, and very private, standing behind that hedge, exactly where they had been hiding. On the back, written in careful handwriting, were the words, "Next Halloween, I will know if you come back." None of them went near that neighborhood again, and none of them ever felt safe on Halloween night afterward. If you want, I can also make a YouTube thumbnail prompt for this story that will grab viewers' attention without using ghosts or supernatural elements. It would look terrifyingly realistic.